Hey friends, Rob Phoenix here. Hope you're all doing well. It is Wednesday, September 17th. Um, it's fall. I'm happy about it. I love it. The leaves are starting to fall in our property. Um, Garden's looking a little weathered, so there's some stuff I really need to just cut back. But I'm happy to say that I planted over 50 some plants in the greenhouse. Maybe like a week or two ago, I can't remember, but I mean, a lot of them are sprouting. Like the chamomile is just sprouting like crazy. So, pretty excited about that. I started closing up the greenhouse now in the evenings because we still have relatively warm days. And as long as the sun is shining, it gets pretty hot in the greenhouse. So, they seem to like it. They seem to like the heat and then the cooler nights. I'm having way more success growing things now than I was in the early summer when I was trying to grow stuff and it was just frying up. You know, it's all an experiment. Another thing I wanted to talk about is there was some excitement of the bad kind in our area today. Just down the road in York County, there was more gun violence because every time there's gun violence, the politicians always say, "This is not who we are." I wish they would just start saying, "This is exactly who we are," and let's fix this. The United States is literally a country of gun violence, and we need to do something about it. 5 police officers were shot. I have no idea what the status is of their health, but I know at least 3 of them were in dire condition, and the other 2 were maybe not as bad. And the shooter is dead. So that does not bring closure to the families. At least I don't think. Maybe for them it does. I don't know. I just feel like justice doesn't really get served because we don't get answers. Anyway, it's just every day there's just new gun violence. It's really tragic. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. So, but in shifting topics, that was the bad stuff. The good stuff is I like to educate myself on different American folk magic traditions. So I follow this guy on YouTube who calls himself Papa Seer. Seer, like Seer. His videos are amazing. They're about hoodoo and black spirituality, which I love. And I'm trying so hard to get my son interested in it, but he's just not right now, and that's okay. But as a young black man, I hope that someday he develops an interest in this because I always want that to be a part of his life. I'm not raising him as a white kid. I'm doing my best to raise him and give him access to as much information as I can about, his culture. So anyway, all that aside, Papa Seer. So I was watching one of his videos today about the hoodoo saints. Now, I've made a video before about the saints in Powwow, which are our folk saints, which are like Sophia Baylor, Anna Marie Young, Nelson Raymeyer. But I want to talk a little bit about, do we as powwowers actively work with the saints? And we tend to think of saint veneration as like a situation for Catholics. Now, when the Protestant Reformation happened, Protestantism allowed for a lot of that saint veneration to filter into the Protestant church, and like the German Reformed Church allowed saint veneration because they knew that people really liked that, and that worked for them, and that made them feel more connected because God seemed unattainable because you had to be a priest to have access to God, and the common folk had their saints. So anyway, in powwowing in and of itself does not teach or talk about saint veneration. However, some of the charms do reference saints or call upon them, or archangels. But saint veneration is something that happens in your religion. So if you are of Catholic origin, Protestantism, German Reformed, it's okay, You can do saint veneration, and whatever that means to you. There are no like prescribed rituals and such within Pennsylvania German Brauerei on how to properly. Sorry about my hands. My hands are hurting today, and I don't know what to do with them. But there are no instructions for how to properly incorporate them into your magical work. So my advice is go by what excuse me, go by what you've learned in your religious experience. Like, for example, in Catholicism, we might burn a candle and have a statue of that saint in our home and burn a candle while saying the prayer. Certainly, we would have prayer cards. They're a big thing. Like, growing up, my mother loved the saint statues. She had a bunch of them. She loved the prayer cards. Nowadays, from certain botanicas, especially like hoodoo and voodoo botanicas, you can get the saint candles, like 7-day candles. But I also noticed that we have a store called Dollar Tree local to us. They sell all those like 7-day candles, like with the various saints on them. And if you don't know, it's like here's a 7-day candle. This one's just black, but I don't know. I only really buy the ones with that are just solid colors, and then I peel the label off, just because I like to burn candles. But they sell also all the saints. And I even noticed that they sold, like our local Dollar Tree sold candles for Saint Expedite, who is not officially canonized by the Catholic Church. However, he is a voodoo folk saint. So I thought that was pretty cool that our Dollar Tree sells Saint Expedite candles. So yeah, if you choose to use those buy those candles and use them, I mean, that's, you do you. But just know that is not, you're not going to find instructions within powwow itself, but that becomes a part of your powwowing because that's a part of your Christian religious experience. And these are the saints that we work with are canonized, like they're saints because the Vatican, the Catholic Church, the Pope has deemed them so, because they have done miracles in the name of Christ. And so now they're saints. And I think some are like martyr saints too. Like I would consider Nelson Raymeyer, even though he's a folk saint, not canonized by the church, I would consider him to be like a martyred folk saint, only because, well, he did a great many things for a great many people, and there are so many stories around of people like having been healed by him. Obviously, this is over 100 years ago, but he was murdered, wrongly accused of putting a spell on somebody when he did not, and he was murdered for it. So therefore he's, in my personal opinion, a martyred folk saint. And so it is absolutely appropriate for us powwowers to venerate him in some way, shape, or form. Just keeping in mind he was a socialist. He lived alone apart from his family. What does that mean? His wife and daughters lived in a separate house. And he was just kind of a loner. He was a farmer. He was an inventor. And he was very kind, very nice man. And he powwowed for anyone and everyone. And so I think there is a lot that somebody like him could have to share with us. So anyway, kind of going off on a little whatever with that. But yeah, it's absolutely appropriate for us to work with saints in our powwowing work. Again, that's because we're bringing our Christian religion into it. It's not part of the tradition per se, but the tradition is just it's a very simplistic tradition. It's what we color it, and make out of it. I'm losing myself here. It's what we make of it with our cultural and religious understanding, knowledge, experience, skills. So that's that. Don't feel bad about using saints, because that's totally fine. If that's part of your Christian experience, because the saints were Christians, go for it. And don't forget the folk saints. And everybody has different folk saints. Like we have a couple of them here in Pennsylvania. But you might have some in your area too. So that's that. And I'm loving the cooler weather today. It was like cooler here in Pennsylvania, South Central Pennsylvania. Not cool enough though. It still ended up being kind of warm, like in the upper 70s, and it was sort of muggy. I wish we'd get a little more rain, but I guess since it's fall, it's like we're not going to see flowers blooming or anything right now. Even though my wildflower garden still looks kind of pretty, but my dog Sophie has like dug up everything because I believe there are mice living under the rock I have around the garden. So she's always out there digging and tearing, and like the poor flowers. Anyway, that's all I had to say. So I hope everybody's having a good week. Weekend is coming. Looking forward to that. And I hope you're doing some fun fall stuff. And that's it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Try not to be snarky. Subscribe, like, share, thumbs up, all the YouTube-y stuff. And that's it. God bless you guys. Love you. We'll talk again soon.